For question 7, A. In the diagram, length AB is equal to length AD, which is equal to 8 cm, and the length or the magnitude of CD is equal to 5 cm. If angle BCD is equal to 90 degrees and angle BAD is equal to 50 degrees, calculate, correct to the nearest whole number, I, the magnitude or the length of BD, and II, the area of triangle BCD. So the question wants us to find the magnitude of BD from the diagram given. Now let's shift our attention to the diagram. We have been given a diagram and the question wants us to find BD. Now let's observe the diagram very well. Where is BD? This is BD. So the question wants us to find the distance from this point to this point. Now let's observe, or let's take a critical look at the diagram again. So this is the diagram, and they want us to find the distance from B to D. So let's do this, or let's draw a line up to the B. From the question, it says the distance from A to B is equal to what? 8 cm. So from this point up to this point is 8 cm, and from this side to up to this side is 8 cm. If that is the case, if you are to consider triangle A B D, this triangle is an isosceles triangle, or because two sides are equal, AB is equal to AD. If that is the case, then this triangle acts as it stands like this. If we are to draw a perpendicular line from A to the midpoint or to the center of line BD, this line that we are about to draw is going to divide the triangle into two equal parts. So from A up to the center of line BD. Don't forget, this is not drawn to scale. But when you draw the line from A to this point, let's say this point is our O. This line is indeed dividing this isosceles triangle ABD into two equal parts. If that is the case, then the angle here, which was 50 degrees, is also going to be divided into two. Therefore, this side is going to be 25 degrees, and this side too is going to be 25 degrees. Now we are having two triangles there. Let's say triangle 1 and then triangle 2. Let's pick one of them and try and analyze that. So let's say we have 1 to be like this, because this was our O and this was part of the A, so A, and this was our D. In this case, I'm using triangle 2, this side. It means that from the A to the D, we know that it was given, and that was 8. Now we know the angle here to be equal to 25. But this angle too, there's going to be an angle here which is 90 degrees. The reason why it is 90 degrees is that Because this was a perpendicular line, the line AO was a perpendicular line, the angle that will be forming here is 90 degrees. That is why. So the angle here is also 90 degrees. We want BD. All that we are doing, we want to find BD. So we can try finding OD, and that will help us to get the distance for, or the length for B to D. So in this case, we want to find OB from this point up to this point. Now considering this triangle that we are having here, the side opposite to this particular angle, that is the 25, is this side. So it means that this side is the opposite, and this side, the 8, where the 8 is our hypotenuse. If that is the case and we want to find OD, since this side is our opposite and we have our hypotenuse to be equal to 8, then opposite and hypotenuse, the trig ratio that will work for this is the sine. So we are going to have our sine of the angle here, and the angle is 25. Therefore, sine 25, and that will be equal to the opposite. And our opposite in this case is what? Our OD. So sine 25 is equal to our OD, which is the opposite, over the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is what? The AD. Alright. Now we want to find OD. If that is the case, then we are going to have our sine 25 degrees being equal to the magnitude of OD over 8. We want to find OD, so we multiply through by the 8. So we are going to have 8 sine 25 degrees being equal to the magnitude of OD. And if we use our calculator to simplify this, 8 times sine 25 degrees is going to give us 3.3809. So this is our length or magnitude of OD. Now let's go back to the diagram to observe something. Now we are having the distance of OD from this point up to this point, but we want the total distance from B to D. In this case, you should know, or from the diagram, that BD is equal to twice or 2 times the length or the magnitude of OD, because the distance from O to D is half of the distance from B to D, because this line AO divided the AB into 2 equal parts. That is how come. So the magnitude of BD is equal to 2 times the magnitude of OD. Therefore, if you want the magnitude of BD, that is going to be equal to 2 times the magnitude of OD. Now we know the magnitude of OD, so 2 multiplying the magnitude of OD, that is 3.3809, and this is going to give us 6.7618. Don't forget that from the question, It says we should correct to the nearest whole number. It said calculate, correct to the nearest whole number. Therefore, BD to the nearest whole number is going to be 7 cm. If we consider the II, say we should calculate the area of triangle BCD. Now look at what we are having here. The question wants us to calculate the area of this triangle BCD. This triangle. The question wants us to find area of this triangle. So now let's draw the triangle and see what is going to happen. The triangle looks like this. Okay, so we have our B here, we have our C here, and we have our D also here. That is how the triangle looks like. And we have this side, that is CD, to be equal to 5 cm, and the angle here is also equal to 90 degrees. And now we know the value for BD, but actual length was 6.7618. So we can use that, although it was approximated to 7 centimeters, but we can use the 6.7618. Now the question wants us to find the area of this triangle, but don't forget that area of this triangle BCD is equal to half times the base times the perpendicular height. Now, what is the height? In this case, the height is the BC, the distance from B up to C. That is the height, and this becomes our base. We know the base, but we don't know the height. It means that we have to calculate for the height, that is length BC. So in this case, considering triangle BCD, which is a right triangle, we can use Pythagoras theorem to get BC, that is the magnitude of BC. From Pythagoras theorem, we can derive this equation, that is BD, or the length of BD, or square of magnitude BD, because that is our hypotenuse, and that will be equal to, we have BC squared plus CD squared. Now we want BC. So what do? Let's try and make BC the subject. BD, we know that BD is 6.7618. So all squared is equal to BC squared plus CD, and CD was 5, so 5 squared. We will be having 6.7618 all squared minus 5 all squared, and this will be equal to BC squared. So if you want BC, you take square root of both sides. Okay, so the 6.7618 all squared is going to give us 45 20.7219 minus 25, and this will be equal to BC all squared. The 45.7219 minus 25. Now this will be giving our BC all squared to be equal to 20.7219. We want BC, so it means that we have to take square root. Therefore, our BC will be equal to square root of the 20.7219. So our BC will be equal to the square root of the 20.7219, and this will be giving us 4.5521. So this is our BC. Therefore, going back to the area of triangle BCD, which is half times base times height. In this case, we have our half times the base, which is 5, times our height, and the height we had 4.5521, and this is going to give the area of triangle BCD to be equal to 11.3803. Don't forget that we are finding the area of a triangle. Therefore, the units should also come. Therefore, we are going to have 11 centimeter squared, because the question said to the nearest whole number. So our area of that triangle BCD is equal to 11 centimeters squared. So this was the question 7A. Let's move to the 7B. For 7B, a man is 5 times as old as his son. In 3 years' time, the product of their ages will be 380. Find their present ages. The question wants us to find the present ages of the father and the son. So before you move on, you have to do some representations. So the first thing, their present ages. Use something to represent them. So we let's say X represent the son's present age. Therefore, the father's present age will be equal to 5x, because it says that a man is 5 times as old as his son. So the son's age is x and the father's age is 5x. Then the question said, in 3 years' time, you ask yourself, in 3 years' time, what happened? In 3 years' time, the product of their ages will be 380. So in this case, what you have to do is find their ages in that 3 years' time. So in 3 years' time son's age will be what? Now, assuming that currently I'm 30 years old, I'm assuming in 3 years' time, my age is going to be 33. I have to add 3 to my present age. In that case, if the son's age or the son's present age is X, in 3 years' time, the son is going to be X plus 3. We do the same thing for the father. So in that 3 years' time, the father's age will also be 5x plus 3. Now the question is saying that their product or the product of their ages in this 3 years' time will be 380. So that implies that x plus 3 times 5x plus 3, and this will be equal to 380. So the next thing for you to do is to solve for x in this case. So expand the binomial expansions there, and then you rearrange that and you solve for x. So that is what we are coming to do. So now we have x plus 3 multiplying 5x plus 3, and that is equal to 380. X multiplies 5x, that will give us 5x squared. The same x multiplies the 3, and that will give us 3x. Come and use this 3 to multiply this 5x, and that will give us 15x. This same 3 multiplies this 3 here, and that will give us positive 9, and this is equal to 380. Because the highest exponent in the equation here is 2, that is, the exponent for x is 2, it means that the equation that we are having there is quadratic equation. So let's arrange that in the general form of quadratic equation. That is, the squared term will come first, followed by the x term, and then the constant. So we are going to have 5x squared. 3x plus 15x will give us 18x. So plus 9 minus 3, 80, and this is equal to 0. You simplify this further, and this will give you 5x squared plus 18x minus 3, 7, 1, being equal to 0. Now this quadratic equation, you have 3 approaches that you can use to solve. Either to use the factorization method, or you use the general quadratic formula, or they use the completing of squares method, whichever way. But I want to use the factorization method here. You can use any other formula or approach to solve that. Okay, so for me to factorize, I'm going to use the 5, that is the coefficient of x squared, to multiply the constant, that is the minus 371. And when I do that, this is going to give me minus 1855. So you ask yourself, find two numbers in which when you multiply, you get the minus 1855, but when you add these two numbers, you should get the coefficient of x, that is the 18. So I try using my calculator, and I realized that and I realized that 53 and minus 35 is going to work for me. Therefore, I'm going to have my 5x squared minus 35x plus 53x minus 371 is equal to 0. I take the first two terms, I factorize, then I'll come and take the next two terms here, then I factorize. Therefore, 5x squared minus 35x, the common factor there is 5x. So 5x comes out, I open the bracket, I'm going to be left with x minus 7. I close the bracket. Once again, the 53x minus 371, there is a common factor, and the common factor there is going to be the 53. So I'm going to have my plus 53. I open the bracket. I'm going to be left with x minus 7. And this is equal to 0. So in this case, I'm having x minus 7, then 5x plus 53, and that is equal to 0. In this case, I have two linear factors multiplying, and that is equal to 0. So you have to take each linear factor, then equate it to 0. Because the basic assumption is if two things are multiplying and it is equal to 0, it means that definitely 1 is equal to 0. That is why we are going to equate each to 0. So in this case, we'll be having x minus 7 is equal to 0. And this implies that x is equal to 7. We take the other one, that is the 5x plus 53 is equal to 0. This implies that 5x is equal to minus 53. So we divide both sides by 5, and we get our x to be equal to minus 53 over 5. We are dealing with ages for human beings, so there's no way we should get negative. If we are having negative, then we are going to ignore the negative, because someone cannot be negative years old. Therefore, our x will be equal to 7. But don't forget that the x is representing the son's present age. Hence, the son's age is equal to 7 years, and the father's age, which was 5x. So it means 5 times 7 years. And that will be equal to 35 years. So yes, the son is 7 years old and the father is 35 years old. This brings us to the end of question 7 of the Wassce 2020 Core Math Theory paper.